Yes.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the March 11th, 2024 meeting of the Lowell Historic Board. First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from February 12th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? And does anyone have any questions or comments for Steve?
Move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to old business. This is item DLHD-22-10, 78 Middlesex Street. Application for a historic permit for exterior rehabilitation pursuant to the Lowell Historic District Act. If the applicant would like to introduce themselves and present the update.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to all. For the record, my name is John Geary of Geary & Geary, LLP, 32 Church Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm here tonight representing the developer, 78 Middlesex Street, LLC. The principal of the LLC is Justin McFarlane. He's done several projects in the city. He's a very conscientious developer. Steve has experienced several developments with him. I think could attest to that. But we're here before you tonight seeking a modification to the historic permit that was issued back on October 18th for this property. Steve did a great job of summarizing the requested modifications, but I'll add to that the project is well underway in terms of the interior construction or reconstruction of the property. But the applicant has run into some significant cost overruns associated with this project, and particularly the facade. So the developer and his design team went back to the drawing board. They were looking at the facade, trying to figure out how they could save costs but keep the integrity of the building. So they came up with a reconfiguration of the facade that saved costs, keeps the integrity of the development, and helps to keep moving the project forward, the redevelopment forward, which is very important. The redesign still conveys the significance of the building, but they feel it's at least equal to what they had originally proposed. So a few of the changes are that the developer has already ordered, and the windows as originally designed are on site now. So they'll be using those windows. They're preserving the existing brick and block wall. They're maintaining the existing floor lines, which was a significant savings in terms of structural costs. They're adding stone or masonry to the base ground level. They're staining the existing white brick piers, and they're adding a decorative soffit under the third floor edge of the building. So they're not proposing any changes to the fence and plantings that are there for security and privacy purposes. So it's important to keep those in place. And ultimately, the developer would really like to see this project through to its conclusion. But in order to do that, he needs some modifications to the facade. So that's what I'm here tonight requesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess since this is old business, we don't need to ask for public comment for or against, so we can just get into board discussion and comment.
Jeffrey, could you briefly summarize what the board had approved? Just briefly, what the board had...
In terms of the exact design that was approved?
Yes, in relation to what we see before us.
Yes, the handout that was provided, it's this first page of showing the red brick facade and the fenestration patterns. That is what design was approved in October of 2021. And then this rendering here represents the revised plan for the main facade. It looks like there are some tweaks to the side facade as well. Is that true? In terms of the openings?
Not really.
Or that?
The idea with the side facade is to clean up the brick, repoint the masonry, and depending on what it looks like when it's cleaned and repointed, whether or not it needs a stain or not is yet to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, anything like that they would check in with Steve and confirm the color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
It's red brick now. I imagine it would just be red.
Mm-hmm.
Cleaner shade of red, if you will.
Right. Right.
Well, not on the west side, is open to the courtyard.
Right.
Or pocket park is.
Is that courtyard going to have the trees?
Yes, just as the landscape plan that was approved by the planning board with the site plan review will remain intact.
Including the gate?
Yes, yeah.
Right, so it appears the fenestration pattern hasn't changed, but it's really just the framing around that and the setbacks of the facade and brickwork and other elements that's changed. And the existing two white piers are more prominent in this redesign than they were in the one we reviewed before, but
So a question about the veneer, when it was mentioned that it was stone, it's a stone veneer, correct? Is that correct, a stone veneer?
The existing veneer is brick, white brick, and cement block. Does that answer?
Yeah, that's the original, but this design, the new design calls for a stone at the
They're
first.
they're going to use, on the lower portion
Yes,
of the building, they're going to put cement block there. Not, cement, I think it's called CMU, is that the appropriate?
Masonry panel.
Yeah, panel, right, exactly.
but it has the appearance of stone, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and the brick on the third story will stay intact. That will be cleaned up and painted and stained.
Roy?
Yeah, so the brick is staying up there, but you are punching some windows out of it, yeah?
Yes, correct. Yep.
There's not as many windows, right?
I think that so what I'm told is they have ordered the windows based on the original design, and those windows, they're all being used. So I think there are the same amount of windows in one form or another.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to think on the third floor, there's a slight change in the pattern of
Yeah.
and size of the
Yeah,
window
no, I
openings.
see what you're saying, for sure.
Because they're in triplicate in this new design, but before they were just pairs in each panel, basically.
Yeah.
So it is a slight change in that pattern. But overall, the
Yeah,
ratio of glazing to brickwork
the
seems
third
comparable.
floor
to what
was inset a little bit with a cement panel around the window frame. That won't,
Right.
will just be inset into the brick now. Again, the development team, the architects working with the development team, took a long look at this, hard look at this, and they feel as though the design that they're proposing is at least equivalent to what was originally proposed.
I would just like to make a comment. I just think, this is sometimes you have to pivot in a project, and I just think this is a positive step. This kind of relates to the rest of the neighborhood in terms of the look and the feel of the neighborhood. So nice
I would
job
agree.
nice job on the pivot.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, personally, I'd have more trouble losing the red if we didn't have a white building right next door anyway. Sometimes Lowell has a really consistent color, and any color that isn't red just stands out. But I feel like, considering that right next door is this bright white building, it if anything, it kind of blends in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think across the street too, across the street, we still, we have the parking garage and everything, and then a little further down, we have the Carter building being constructed, so I think it has relatability to the block, but it has its own character.
Yeah. It's funny, you'd even match the buildings. Oh, sorry. it even matched the buildings that John Dock is building down on East Merrimack Street.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, Debbie, too, just to add, I think this is also consistent with a lot of the look in the Hamilton Canal, you know, when you go on the other side of the lofts.
Yeah, my sense is that, while there is some more significant change to the third floor, I think overall the design still reflects the scale of the neighborhood, and the pattern of the openings is still consistent with the character of the neighborhood, and is isn't a huge difference in what was originally proposed. So
Sure.
I don't have any concerns with what's been presented to us.
Yeah, for me, this would be a much more difficult conversation if more of the original building, if the facade was more original. But since we're reconstructing anyway, I think, to me, this is, one where we do our best to fit into the neighborhood, and I think you've made a real good faith effort here to redesign in a way that's not going to break our aesthetic.
Thank you.
Well, I just want one quick comment. It's kind of interesting that in some ways, the current facade, I think we all agree, is pretty awful. And what's interesting, and I don't think this is awful, but in some ways it's more in keeping with that 1970s facade than this earlier approval. But I agree. I mean, I do think that in some ways I like the original approved redesign. This new design is not bad. Yeah.
I would agree. Adds a little pop to the building.
Yeah.
Not that you want too much pop in it.
Right amount, yeah.
Exactly.
It's a good pop.
Good pop.
Yeah, I think it's a good pop,
Historic
too.
pop.
Yep.
Any further questions or comment from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion. There is a recommended motion in the meeting notes.
I make the motion. Motion to vote to approve the design revisions of 7880 Middlesex Street in the Downtown Historic District with all previous approved conditions remaining in full effect.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you all for your
All right.
time.
Thank you.
Gotta get used to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the the on and off is tough to keep track
We're still
of.
getting used to it, too. It used to be nice when we were in the hammer room, right, just around a table.
It's like the mute button on your Zoom meetings. All right, other business. Steve has a number of items in the meeting notes.
Welcome, Debbie, tonight.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm excited to be here.
It was nice to have a fresh perspective and new voice on the board, so looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, thank
Welcome.
you.
Yeah, everything in the report is basically for informational purposes per usual. One thing to note would be, again, Doors Open Lowell's about 50% roster lock-in at this point, and that's moving along very nicely. The Smith Baker Center, nothing new to report since the last meeting, other than the fact that I did put in the packet the most recent council response to their motions, which they received last Tuesday. So I wanted to make sure you solved that, since it's been a discussion point the past couple of meetings. Wanted to make sure you had the most recent information on that. But other than that, that's really everything's in here for informational.
Smith Baker.
Sure.
I just wanted to add that in the time between the last two meetings, the Historical Society did put out did come together and put out a statement, which is just pretty straightforwardly a statement of support for any effort that can be made to try to preserve the building in really any way possible, and just a request that any efforts that are still open to us be made to try to do anything to keep it from the total loss outcome.
I just want to add to that. So this was a letter from Phil Belanger, president of Lowell Historical Society, to the city manager. And he not only was urging the support of Smith Baker, but also urging the search for funds for, at the very least, stabilization of the building.
Yeah, I saw the discussion about the investigation of the Massachusetts Historical Commission funding, which we all know is pretty limited. Has there been any discussion of the CPA funds being available?
None that I'm aware of, but that would be equally as, a small amount. I mean, the chair's referring to the Massachusetts Historical Commission's Massachusetts Preservation Projects Fund that is specifically for municipal and/or nonprofit structures on the national and state registers, as is the Smith Baker. Previously in Lowell, some of you might be familiar with a lot of the stained glass restoration of Pawtucket Congregational Church undertook many years ago. That was assisted with that fund. The board itself has made use of the fund twice, once for the Ladd and Whitney and Wing Victory restoration in early 2000s, and also in the acquisition of the 2628 Lawrence Street house that we did rehab the outside of, and then it was flipped to a private entity. But the amounts are nowhere near what it would take, and they range from $75,000 to $100,000. You'd be applying for years, for this particular scale of project. I mean, so that's what's on that. In terms of CPA funds, I'm sure it's something that they would look at if a viable entity came forward, because in the past they have funded, for example, as Giovanni mentioned the last meeting, 150 Middlesex Street, which the board approved a few months ago next to the Carter, and also, what was the other one? Oh, the 199 Market Street across from the Visitor Center next to Warp and Weft, where King Star Cafe was. So there is a track record of CPA in the short time it's existed in Lowell funding projects like this. It's just usually it's part of the bigger financial pro forma when they're doing the projects.
Right, it's not the end all.
Not being wholly dependent upon that being the source.
Steve, let me add one other thing about Smith Baker, and this is kind of the 11th hour, but there's a group including City Councilor Paul Rathi-Yum, one of the Lowell Historical Society board members, Brad McGowan, I've been involved as well, and Dennis McCarthy, who's on the zoning board, who's also a member of Lowell Historical Society. There's been some discussion very late with a new proposal to create essentially a Southeast Asian history, culture, and art center at Smith Baker. I don't know if anything will become of it, but it could involve a meeting with Lori Trahan, our representative. And finally, there was some question that I received an email today. Is there a meeting with the City Council tomorrow to make a decision on the Smith Baker?
I don't believe it's on the agenda tomorrow night. I'll look at the agenda again tomorrow morning and let you know, but I don't think there was anything on the agenda regarding Smith Baker for this week's council meeting. But I will look tomorrow morning, and if there is something, either way, I'll let you know. Hey, it's on the agenda. No, it's not.
Good. Thanks.
I don't think there's that much time left to make a decision on the Smith Baker. It seemed to me the council was pretty adamant about, if it's a Hail Mary, awesome, but I think they want to move forward with, because of the liability to the city with people going in there and, bricks falling and the like.
No, and I think from the past couple of meetings where it's been discussed, I think that the word dire condition was used amongst board members here. So I think, you don't want to say the handwriting's on the wall, but as you had been noting, the Hail Mary pass has been used a couple of times in terms of analogy for this project. There's always Powerball tonight. I mean, whatnot, but it's getting to the end, I think, unfortunately.
I just want to add, too, again, I think what was interesting in part about Phil Belanger's letter, and by the way, Phil Belanger is an architect, that he's wondering, kind of implicitly in the letter, if stabilization as one alternative right now is an option that has not been fully explored. apart from future redevelopment for reuse, stabilization.
I haven't been in that building in a very long time, but last time I was, it was when I was on the Blue Ribbon Committee to look at turning that into a performing arts center, and then the CBA, I think, was in the process of buying it or looking to raise the funds for it, but I just don't see how that's possible at this point.
What was interesting, I think Troy on the board, he actually was working with CBA in 2017-18 in his private practice capacity, and he said it was in rough shape then, and based upon cost estimates then, can only imagine what it would cost now. I was in that building last April. And in fact, I'll get you a copy of the report that David Lieb from the National Park put together. He, myself, the building commissioner, and Peter Osella went through it. And after that, we were both all looking at it going, yeah, this is really tough. And David was estimating upwards of $35 million to begin even touching the building. So it's, I'll get you that so you have that copy. Everyone else has seen it, but you haven't since you've just got on. So that way you can take a look through, and that was sort of what led to some of the dire comments, and the fact that within maybe a few weeks after that report coming out, I mean, we had another meeting with the city manager, and it was myself, Peter, David, Juliet in the park, and as I've told folks before, it takes a lot to get me, and especially Peter Osella too, to get our. It's frustrating, it's agonizing, but sometimes you have to see what's realistic and have some common sense too. Not unfortunately, but sometimes you hit that point.
We can only hope, like you say, Powerball or stabilization funds.
Yeah, I've said this before, so forgive me for repeating myself, but to me too, it's a real, if we have failed, what do we learn? And for us specifically on this board, I think there are several lessons, and one of them is definitely don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We have to, these buildings don't survive, infinitely, and if someone isn't moving forward with them, sometimes that means that their time runs out. So to me, it's a reminder that an imperfect project is sometimes better than nothing, and to be willing to compromise to keep a building alive rather than waiting for that perfect moment.
I think that one of the things one of the board members mentioned 1 or 2 meetings ago was one of the lessons was don't put all your eggs in the performance center basket. That sort of thing. But then again, from what you're saying, you all just did a really good thing tonight in terms of pivoting on this project at 78 Middlesex Street, because absent the change in this design, it's unknown if the project would continue to be viable. So this was a good thing, I think, to do tonight to help that project, come to fruition, similar to what you were saying.
Yeah. But I also have to, make note that nobody ever experienced anything like COVID either, for 3 years when things weren't moving forward, and things might have been different if, that hadn't come into play.
I just want to add again, if there's a strong vision for this project that involves, for example, an underrepresented community, underrepresented people, Southeast Asians, I count among them, that there could be, with creative ideas and creative proposal, even some federal funding that could be available. If Lori Trahan could be excited about this kind of project, it's interesting what kind of monies are out there with the federal government. So that's why I don't think the city should really give up on this, despite the dire condition of the building. So there are other options to look at. Again, in the more immediate stabilization funds, which would not be perhaps $35 million, but again, down the line, the potential for a major center that relates to the Cambodian, Laotian, Vietnamese population here. Combining arts, culture, Angkor dance troupe could be centered there. So there's a lot of opportunity that we really shouldn't just give up on.
Well, please keep us updated as you hear more about, future city council meetings and any follow-up on
I'll check on
the.
that for tomorrow, just to see.
Yeah.
And I'll also check with the clerk's office to see if anyone has signed up to speak. Sometimes you can sign up and may or may not have to be on the agenda. I don't know. I'll check with him.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't think we've had anybody from the public speak on this. I think it's just been the city councilors, correct? Because it might not be a bad idea to have somebody from the Historic Society.
I believe last week at the council meeting, there may have been, I'll have to go back and look at the tape. I thought there might have been someone that signed to speak on the motion response, but I can't be certain if that's the case.
I didn't think there was any sign-up available for that, Steve.
Anything that's on the agenda, you can sign up to speak on.
Okay.
Just it's by a certain time, the day of the meeting, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I wondered, Steve, if you might be willing to do a little bit more of a plug for Doors Open, just because I know people do watch.
It's interesting to talk about plugging Doors Open Lowell because prior to the last month's meeting, I met with the LTC folks here. They wanted to meet with me, and we're looking at doing a couple of things. One is almost an advanced promo spot for Doors Open Lowell. So we're going to be working with LTC on something that'll run, intermittently. And then they also want to send a crew out during the event and do some sort of, not live coverage, but sort of a retrospective after the fact. So Chris O'Neill there is very excited and interested in, doing this. I guess he's really into architecture and such. But no, May 18th, like I said, we have 50% of the roster set right now, looking to lock in the rest of the buildings in the next few weeks and then gain the program into design. I've already gone to one vendor to have a couple extra banners made and the lapel stickers and do the program printing and that kind of thing. So, I always joke with people that the event is like sea monkeys. You add water and you have instant event. It's a lot of legwork, but it's, at its core, it's basically asking people to open up their buildings for a few hours, and it's pretty simple in the end.
When do you expect to have, or when do you typically have the final program nailed down that you can then promote on internet and other places?
The final program, I'm hoping to have by the end of the month, first week in April, because it has to get to designer, because the designer's gone by like May 4th, and the printing schedule coincides. And a lot of it will be digital this year, but we're also going to print.
Yeah.
We're going to print some hard copies, which is always good to have some at the Visitor Center and the Mogan and the Boot Museum and the different other sites. But hoping to lock the roster in. I mean, the morning is almost done. It's the afternoon I'm sort of fiddling with right now because we're waiting. I was just talking to someone before the meeting started about their building.
Oh, great.
Trying to get that open. So it's I would say it's going to be end of the month, first week in April, because and then it's just plugging into the same design for the program and the same verbiage, and the website's slowly being updated with the sponsor list, for example, and whatnot. So, but as buildings come online, I'm going to try next week to start inserting them online so people see what is coming. So even if there's some holes for a few weeks.
Right.
Are you working with Peter Crew for like potential advertising?
Oh yeah, Case is going to have it out in their usual blurbs and things that they do.
Perfect.
I mean, in fact, I was the first. He was the first one I told. I think that it's back, so he was kind of excited about that, especially since he hasn't.
You should also go on WCAP.
I always do that. That in the past I'd always go on CAP the week of the event, and I'll do Inside Lowell too. I've done those. Yeah.
All helps.
Great. Any other comments? With that, I'll have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Making my first meeting good.